All right, what's up, everybody? Joe Fafara, Igor Henriquez. Been a minute. It's still June the 1st, just before midnight. Igor, NBA Finals are here. We got the Celtics taking on the Warriors. Celtics 2 seed against the Warriors, number 3. I don't know. Are you shocked that either of these teams made? I know we were both pretty high on Boston. Are you shocked Golden State made it out?
I mean, I'm not shocked that either team made it. I mean, this is actually our first edition of On the Block After Dark, the Disco Inferno edition. But no, I wasn't shocked. I think Golden State was always. I had them and Phoenix as the prohibitive favorites out west to get out. So I'm not surprised. I obviously was surprised that Phoenix got knocked out at the where they did. I figured it was going to be a Golden State Phoenix Western final, and that didn't happen. Boston, I mean, me and you have been riding with Boston this whole the whole entire time, and there did look like some situations where the Milwaukee series and so forth. They looked like a couple of times where I'm like, it might be a problem, but when the games mattered and that Miami game 7 where they nearly blew it and Jimmy just missed the 3 there, that would have been a horrendous loss considering they were up by 13, I think, with like 3 minutes to go. So they looked out there, but we have 2 really talented teams, 2 teams that have, you got Jason Tatum and, Jaylen Brown against Steph Curry, and Clay looks like he's getting his swagger back, hitting his threes. And then you have the other parts like Marcus Smart and Al Horford and Wiggins and Draymond. To me, it's a rather pretty even series. The one concern that I have is obviously that the Warriors have a ton of finals experience, especially the top guys, while the Celtics have never been there. And that usually is a recipe for disaster at times. But like I said, we're rolling with Boston. It's going to be a good series. I think it's going to be a close series. I think it's going to go the distance. It really is a coin.
Don't give your pick yet. Don't give the pick yet.
I do think it's going to go the distance, though, because I think it's going to be a real back and forth series.
I'm just actually going to pull up the futures here. So game 1, it was 3.5 for the Warriors at home tomorrow. So to win the series, who do you think's the favorite?
I mean, I think the favorite, and again, the betting odds are on the Warriors, and I think that's because of the situation where, one, they do have, so it is in Golden State tomorrow, correct?
Yeah,
they do have that. One, they have they have the home court, and like I said, it's the playoff finals experience that I think the bookies are looking at it and being like, well, the Celtics might have some issues in terms of jitters in the finals, first time there, but I think it's going to be real. I think the big matchup for me is going to be if Marcus Smart can stay healthy and what he does on Steph. No, nobody plays Steph as hard as Marcus Smart does. I mean, he injured him I think it was earlier this year. I think he rolled on his ankle. Marcus Smart plays Steph very tough. So if he's able to be at his best, it's going to be, I think that'll be the difference in the series, and possibly what they get out of Andrew Wiggins. It's razor thin. It's really, really razor thin, in my opinion.
It's a coin flip. Odds for the series: Golden State -155 and the Celtics +135. Like I said, game 1 is 3.5 for the Warriors. Okay, so let's look at the series. Let's match everybody up. I think Boston has the edge in terms of size. Robert Williams, Time Lord, he tore his meniscus. He's come back in the playoffs. Hasn't been the same. He's missed some games with that knee soreness, so obviously it's been a problem for him. I think we're both shocked with how well Al Horford's played this season. Not even just like the regular season, but going into the playoffs, because he's older than us. I gotta say, he's like 37 at this point. And
I mean, he had a renaissance. I mean, I guess the whole Oklahoma City benching him the entire second half of the season last year, you kind of thought that Al Horford was really on his last legs, but he's done a pretty good job, and he's they haven't had to rely on Daniel Tyson. Yeah, Robert Williams has not been at his best. You can tell that injury's taken some away from him. So the Horford's been relied on. It's going to be interesting because he's another guy on the other side. I mean, Looney's been great for Golden State. I think he's a guy that's been battered with injuries over the years, but he's really their only center inside that they actually use. I know they've used Bajelka a few times, but that's not really, size-wise, he's not anything massive there. So they do go small usually with Draymond and Looney. So I think that'll be a great matchup. But yeah, kudos to Al Horford. He's definitely had a little bit of a career renaissance for sure.
You talked about the lack of experience for Boston. Do you think that that's really going to play a part here? Because you're looking at Golden State, right? You have obviously Steph, who track record wise in the finals hasn't been his regular season self, right? Like he's kind of struggled. He's had some big games in the finals, but as a whole, he hasn't won the MVP. Durant won it both those times, and then Iguodala did, as we know. So I think that if you're the Celtics, what you want to do really is make sure that you can disrupt Steph as much as possible, let other guys beat you. We haven't talked about Jordan Poole yet. He's had a good playoffs, cooled off a little bit. Wiggins has been getting a lot of love, rightfully so, but at the same time, we talked about this with Lamar in the group chat, just about how Wiggins, is it shocking that he's, taken this next step? And then we talked about it. Has he taken the next step? Or is he just really in the role that he should be as a third or fourth scorer on a good team?
I mean, it's also, and I mean, in the Mavericks series, I'll be honest with you there. I think, scoring wise, he also had an easy assignment because, we saw that Luka didn't really put a lot of effort defensively. And that's who they would really take advantage of. They tended to try to attack Luka, and Wiggins usually was the individual that took advantage of a lot of those situations. So, yeah, he's flourishing in a 3-4 role. Whether you think that Poole's a third option or Wiggins is the third option, he's flourishing where like defenses aren't keying on him. And again, he's always been a talented kid. You don't go. I guess there's those that go first overall that end up being really busts and they never do anything. Kwame Brown and a couple of other guys that Anthony Bennett, unfortunately, the Canadian shut up. But Wiggins always had a lot of talent. He just never maximized his potential. And yeah, I mean, as a third or fourth option, he's great. Like, I think we mentioned it in the voice notes. Like, you expect more out of a number one pick, but if he turns into a stellar guy that can lock down defenders and chip in with 12 to 15 in the playoffs, it's a decent role for him. I mean, it's not on the contract that he has, but
that's what I'm saying, right? It's on the contract too.
Role.
It's funny. Little bit off topic. We'll get back in a second. I know that I posted that there were some rumors. Scotty Barnes had mentioned they were not true, but OG Anunoby had one out of Toronto, not happy with his role. So I just wanted to throw this past you really quick. If you had the option for either Andrew Wiggins or OG Anunoby, who would you want?
I would take OG, simply based on the fact that I think Wiggins has had a few more years to really try to prove what he was, and I think we know what he is. I still believe, and it's just been unfortunate for OG in a lot of situations where he's just been so injury prone. I think he still has another level to go to where he can really be a force out there. It's just an unfortunate situation where he just can't stay healthy. And hopefully that isn't, his career projection where every year he ends up, missing 30 games, 20 games, 30 games. But to me, I think he shows improvement, and I think I'd rather see what I have there. And then you look at the contracts; it's definitely an
easy contract in there right now too. But yeah,
yeah. So I would take OG just because I think OG still has more to show, and I think he can reach it. He just needs to, stay healthy, which has been a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say quickly on him. He's falling down the pecking order too, obviously, with Scotty, Pascal. There's a lot of guys now too, right?
Yeah. But again, it could allow him to really do, again, I saw, and again, you were a little bit like, well, OG will never really develop that offensive game that he's going to need to be a real star player. I saw some signs here and there that if he keeps working on it, he'd be okay. And again, worst case scenario, if he does end up being a third option on the team, we'll see how that pans out. But I wouldn't trade him right now, especially because I don't think his value is what it should be, because he's just coming off so many injury prone seasons. Like I wouldn't, like, they're like, oh, why trade him for Rudy Gobert? I'm like, I don't know if Gobert fits in the Raptors system. Obviously he's a great defensive center, but I don't know if he puts you over the top. So, and again, it's a bloated contract too, right? So I hope OG doesn't go anywhere, because I think he's still got another level, and I'm hoping it happens here in the in 6 over there.
Let's get back to the finals. So the Celtics, Tatum and Brown, a lot of people said they couldn't play together at one point. I want to say they were like 25 and 25 or something, sitting in, it was 10th place in the East around Christmas time. Yeah. We've talked about it in the new year, January 1st. They've been on a tear. They've been setting records for point differential. If you're Steve Kerr, what's your game plan going against Boston? Is it simply just get the ball out of Tatum's hands, or do you want the secondary guys to kind of stop and limit them?
I mean, I think the number one plan is to probably, and here's the thing, like Tatum struggled at times with dealing with PJ Tucker and guys like that. He had some games, but he didn't have like a Milwaukee type series where he was banging down 40 pointers every game. He had a few games where he didn't really like dominate a ton. My thing would be do a lot with what you did with, now obviously they can't do what they did with Luka because I think the Mavericks just didn't have the secondary scoring option, so you could really focus on trying to do what you could with Luka. But again, I would throw Wiggins on Tatum. I would try to make sure that he gets contained as much as possible and force Jaylen Brown to beat you. Again, Jaylen Brown probably gets covered by Klay Thompson, so there's matchups in there for them. Or you can even send Draymond at Tatum, so that they have the abilities there and so forth. The interesting thing will be for the Warriors. I think for the key thing, it won't be stopping the Celtics on one end, sure, but it'll be how are they going to free Steph from the clutches of Marcus Smart, and that'll be to me one of the keys as well. How Steve Curry is going to offensively get the best out of Steph, because we know that Marcus is going to try to drive him crazy, which is going to be really like, I'll be watching that tomorrow and be like, oh, let's see what Marcus does here with Steph. Like, he's going to try to get under his skin. He's going to be real physical. Steph doesn't like when guys get too physical with him. But yeah, I mean, it's matchup wise, there's really some great matchups all over the series where it really just depends on who edges out who in the matchup, because they really are relatively even in a lot of aspects. Though I think that the Warriors have a little bit more offensive bite, because again, how much of the Celtics they relied a little bit on Grant Williams to have some games. What are they going to get out of him? Who's going to be like Marcus Smart can shoot them out of games sometimes. Sometimes he gets a little bit too greedy with his shots, shoots them out of games. Who's going to be the number 3 for the Celtics? Is it going to be Horford? Horford sometimes has 15 and 10. Other games he has 2 points.
Yeah, it's funny. I just pulled up Horford now. Excuse me. Yeah. Last games, I'll go in order: 5 points, 14 rebounds, 3 points, 16, 5, 20, 10, 6, 2. So yeah, it's a Jekyll and Hyde with him. I guess if he's feeling good, they're feeding him often. And if it's not, it's really been the 3-headed monster, Brown, Tatum, and Smart. And actually, then mixing in the odd Grant Williams game when he goes off too.
On a little bit of a segue, I took a prop bet on Horford not going over 22 in the last game, and that rebound with 6 seconds left is what got him over the hump. So it was a really bad beat with 3 seconds left that he ends up with a rebound that would have meant nothing, but it is what it is. But no, that's what I mean. They're going to need, where's that third option? I think the Warriors are going to have that. I think, you can expect certain things out of Steph, and I think Klay's really starting to get there. And, Poole's going to get his. Wiggins is going to get his, you would think. Who's going to get there for Boston as a third scoring option? I think that's going to be key, because they're going to need guys to step up and have some games, and to compete with the Warriors offense, because I think the Warriors offensively are the better team, and I think Boston's the better defensive team.
Yeah, I think
that's how it plays out in my opinion.
Yeah, if Boston wins the series, I think it's going to be with their defense.
Yeah,
they're not a team that struggles to score by any means. I'd say they're still probably like a top 10 offense. And I've talked about this for a while, and I've always thought that Tatum was, I don't want to say a top 5 player, but a top 5 guy where you can say, go get me a bucket, and he has the ability to kind of like, isolate and get shot off kind of thing. Yeah, so with the Warriors here, I'm just looking at it now, like the last game they played Dallas, it was, pull up the score. So they ended up winning by 10. Wiggins went 0 for 7 from 3. Klay went 8 for 16. Everybody else pretty much went 1 for 3 or so. So it was a bit of a scoring by committee there, with Klay leading the way with 32, everybody about 15 or 16. Before we make our picks, is there anything else you want to touch on in this series?
I mean, it's one of the,
anybody you want to mention in this last segment of the series?
Well, I mean, we don't want to really get into the special correspondent in these circumstances, because I mean, he'll definitely be rooting for his Boston Celtics. I will say though, if he starts egging on certain guys, what happens when he does all of that. But we're not going to get into all of that. I will say for the viewers that, again, I have been trying to get under his skin because of his I'm not a very I wouldn't say I'm a very spiritual guy in a lot of deaths, or believing in a lot of curses or things like that. But I've definitely tried to do my best to annoy him on particular elements when it comes to the curses on particular players. I know he made mention of Clay, but I doubt he'll be really on that. So, no, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting. I think, both sets of teams. I think for the Warriors, it is a chance at a dynasty type situation where, again, you look at it, it's a pretty crazy run if you think about it. They make the finals all those years. They had all those injuries. They end up at second overall, where they end up losing, almost like being one of the worst teams in the actual NBA. And then they don't. Right? And then I'm pretty sure that the next year they don't make the play. I think they made the play on, but don't make it. I remember they lost to the Lakers.
That was last year. Yep.
That was last year, and then they make it back to the finals. So you very rarely ever see a team go from being in the NBA championship to being dead set in the lottery in the top 2 pick, and then make it back to the NBA finals so quickly. And yes, it was more to do with injuries, and it was a very
because Clay as well, right?
Clay was injured, and Clay didn't play for almost 2 years, and Steph got injured, so it was really one of those really weird seasons, but a weird one all the same. So it's a dynasty for one, and for the Celtics, it's a really coming of age thing for guys like Tatum and Brown and because you look at it, that trade they made with the Nets really reinvigorated all this, because those first round picks, 2 of them ended up being Brown and Tatum. It ended up being a great deal for them. They got rid of Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett, who were really at the end of their roads, and they were able to revamp and go on another championship run. It's been almost, I think that was a 2010 trade. It's been a while, but they ended up working out reasonably for them. So no, it's going to be a great series. I think it's going to be a lot of close games, a lot of crazy finish. But like you said, is Steph going to step up? Is Steph going to be the MVP? I think this might have to be Steph's moment. He's going to need to really prove some doubters wrong that he doesn't need guys like Iguodala stepping up or KD and so forth. This really has to be his moment. And we'll see how it plays out. But there's a lot of good storylines. But I think the Marcus Smart, Steph Curry thing is going to be something I'm going to watch out for, because I think that'll be a very interesting battle and hopefully Smart remains injured. I know that ankle, he's missing games.
Yeah. So I just checked it. Earlier today he was listed as questionable. I just pulled him up a few minutes ago. He's off the injury report, so he will play. Now he is going to play. Obviously he's not going to be 100%. So just kind of curious to see how he's going to be running around all those screens and chasing around Curry with a bum ankle, right?
Yeah. Going to be, again, and that's part of the guys, because the way that Steph's so tricky with his offense, when you're on a bum ankle, that's probably the hardest guy to cover, because he's always moving around, and it's not, if you're on a bum ankle, he's very hard to keep up with in those respects. But we'll see how it pans out. It's going to be interesting. Defensive player of the year against one of the NBA's premier offensive players. Can't ask for much better than that.
All right, it's time to make our picks. I'll let you go first. Let me know who you're taking and in how many games.
So, I have to be a man of my word, because I did pick Boston to make the finals. I did have him going up against Phoenix. I will stay with the Boston Celtics. I think it'll go all the way to 7 games. I'll be honest with you. I'm not uber my pick's going to get in there 100%. It's going to be a battle, but I'm going to take the Boston Celtics in 7 games. New champion.
You already know who I'm taking, right? I earlier when we did our pre-playoff show, I took Celtics. Excuse me, yeah. Celtics to beat the Suns, and obviously the Suns. We could talk about them on a different date, but I'm going to take the Celtics, and I'm going to take them in 6 games. I wanted to do it in 5 games, but I'm going to do it in 6.
Wow, five would have been something.
I think, and I've been listening to a few shows too. With Golden State, everybody has this nostalgia when you hear Steph and Clay and all of them. It's not the same team, obviously, right? We know that Durant's gone. That's a given. These guys are a lot older. Steph is probably in the twilight of his prime. This is probably the last year maybe of his prime. He's going to start to decline. Obviously, he's a shooter, doesn't rely on athleticism. But and then obviously with Clay, Achilles knee, he hasn't been the same guy. He's taken it up recently. And Kuminga, you talked about that trade. This is a guy that came in, but not playing major minutes for them yet. I want to see if he gets some time in there as well.
I think he will, because I think they're going to need him on defense.
Yeah, maybe to throw him at Tatum, right?
Yeah, they're going to need to throw him on defense for sure.
Yeah, and
they have limited options off the bench when it comes to certain guys defensively.
Yeah, so with Wiggins and Wiggins and Clay, whenever one of those guys needs a bit of a break, maybe come in and defend those guys. I know he's not an incredible defender, but he has size, athleticism. So yeah, that's my pick. I'm gonna take him in 6. And then just like I said, getting back to where I think a lot of people just all the public is pretty much on the Warriors. And I know the analytics, they've ran the numbers a few times with the computer from January till now, and whenever they've simulated everything, I think that it's overwhelmingly Celtics in the finals.
Yeah,
I'm
I think.
gonna go with that.
Yeah, like I said, I think the public is mostly on the Warriors because they believe, in that whole experience factor that's going to play a key role. Now, will it or will it not? I think at times you'll probably see, some factors of it, and I wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow the game doesn't go all that great for the Celtics because they'll be on that big stage and maybe they, for in the first quarter or they're in a little bit of a haze. Who knows? You just never know because some of these games, I mean. You look at the Game 7 game against Miami, which was a back and forth. Then you look at some of the other like games against Miami where they were like the worst offensive situation since the 1970 and stuff like that. You just never know what you're going to get. Sometimes.
Yeah, it looked like 90s or 80s basketball, like 85, 83.
Who would have thought without Morant that the Grizzlies would have blown out Golden State by like 50 points, right? Like you just never know sometimes, right?
And still managed to lose the series. Yeah, it's gonna wrap it up. I just wanted to say too, you were talking about if they lose game 1. But we've seen enough times where, you can go down 0-2 on the road, you come back, you win your 2 home games, and you're right back in the series, right? So I don't want to panic if they do manage to lose game 1. But, so I'm going to go Boston in 6. You're going to take Boston in 7.
I'm going to take 7. I think we'll go all the way.
We know that Lamar Grant is taking the Celtics as well. I don't know in how many games.
Is that a sure thing? What happens if Clay gets hot? That might be a problem.
Well, remember he told us. Sorry, say that again. I missed it.
I said, I mean, if Klay Thompson gets hot and he turns into superstar status, that might change his pick again, right? I'm just saying.
I was gonna say because remember in the chat he kept saying in a tone that I'm not gonna use that. Lamar was saying that we know that he doesn't like Steph because he's a showboater and they're not. What did he say? They're not gracious winners, something along those lines. And I'm going to echo that. I don't really love those guys as personalities on the court. Obviously, they're incredible players, but I'm like with Steph and the chewing the mouth guard and the shimmying on the court. I'm not a fan.
I've come to the realization this as a sports fan in general. That a lot of people, I think, like for most part, let's say even like Steph, a small dude, his shooting is incredible, probably the best shooter in NBA history.
Yep.
A lot of people don't like the whole dynasty thing. They don't like and I think that's where Lamar comes from, where Lamar likes to have different winners and every year, and he doesn't like the dynasty thing because everybody turns on the dynasty teams. It doesn't matter if they're squeaky clean or not squeaky clean. No one likes, and especially other fan bases, no one likes continuous winners over and over again because you just hate all that success.
But he does like Michael.
Nature. What was that?
He does like Michael and the Bulls.
Who dislikes Michael and the Bulls?
Lamar is a fan of Michael Jordan of Dynasty, right?
See, that's a different situation though. He's a fan of that because he grew up in the Michael Jordan era, and he was a huge fan of Michael Jordan. Because Michael Jordan was always the be all and end all to him. It's a different situation. We all grew up. Nobody hated. I mean, maybe other fans hated Michael. There was no social media back then. I never heard anybody say, "Oh, I really hate Michael Jordan." Maybe I'm sure the Utah fans probably hated Michael Jordan, and the New York fans probably. But you always respected what Jordan brought to the table. And I think in this day and age, and again, let's be honest, Jordan with the tongue, and like it wasn't like Jordan never celebrated. Let's be real here. It was a different era and how things were really put together. And even like for example, like I remember I sent that picture of Larry Johnson as Grandmama. Yeah, on Family Matters with Steve Urkel. Like back then, no one thought twice about it. Like Larry Johnson he's this huge guy dressed up as a grandma. Everyone thought that was great. And in this day and age, that would be dissected to Lord knows where that would come from, right?
Yeah, people wanted to see his off-season workout videos.
Yeah, exactly. You probably get drug tested like right away, like situation.
The no fun league.
It's a no fun league, right? You can't. And there's like certain guys. I'm not gonna be like. Say that I'm a fashionista and I understand what the heck they're doing half the time these days, but it is what it is. But Yeah, I guess you're right there. I think like that maybe that's the one example in terms of maybe Lamar where he has the Jordan, because again, everyone loved Mike. Everyone wanted to be Mike back in the day, right? So Space Jam, he was a beloved individual. And I think I personally just want to because we haven't done this on the show for a while. I want to state to everybody that I've never been a Michael Jordan hater. I grew up loving Michael Jordan. When it came to the dunks, I stayed up to watch those Utah series. I've always thought Michael Jordan, and I still think that Michael Jordan is the best scorer in NBA history. That I'm not taking things away from Michael Jordan in a sense by comparing him with LeBron and so forth. I always thought Michael was a great athlete and again a great basketball player. Definitely, I would definitely top one, top two, everywhere you want to put it. It's been a great play. Now, we can argue back and forth. Would he have been in trouble in this era? Absolutely, because we know about the gambling and the drinking and all that other stuff. In this day and age, I don't know how that would work, because he would be on social media. He would be in a lot more problems with the lifestyles that he had. Even him and Charles Barkley, all those guys that criticize these guys in this day and age, like they were doing stuff 10 times worse back in the 90s, and they just never got criticized as much because there wasn't any social media. You're under a different spotlight these days. If you're throwing guys out of windows and stuff like that, like that's gonna be trending all over the world, right?
I was gonna say too, I feel like if there were cameras and social media back then, like the chicken and egg thing, I don't know if those guys would have acted the same way.
You think so? I think some guys.
I think that you have to live a different life knowing that there could be a camera rolling at all times.
But think about a guy like Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman would have done that all day. He loved it, right? He would have wanted all the smoke, right? He would have wanted it all.
Until the team told him not to come back or something. Right? I don't know.
Hey, he was out there in NWO land, too sweet.
And Rodman,
you know what? I've looked for that Rodzilla NWO shirt for years. I cannot find it. It's a relic. It was such a good shirt, though. I would have bought that any day of the week, but I cannot find it anywhere. It's sad that I can't find it. It was such a great shirt. But it was a great shirt.
Amazon, we should grab one.
Well, again, I think I've looked everywhere. I cannot find that shirt anywhere. It was a Rodzilla NWO shirt. It was amazing. But yeah, I think maybe it was just made for him. It might have been a one of one. It was a great shirt. But yeah, and overall, like I said, going back to the NBA Finals, it's going to be a great series. I'm expecting some good numbers ratings wise. You got the Warriors, you got the Boston team, which is obviously a major franchise. It's a good finals for the NBA. I think it's a better finals than last year because those were two small market teams. I don't know much hype that got.
Yeah.
But
and everybody was injured that series too, right? Remember Giannis had we thought he tore his knee. Chris Paul was limping.
Yeah.
It was, go down.
This goes back to more of a marquee matchup of and again, it's one of those things that I love how the NBA is going because next year, depending on what happens in the offseason, I can see both these teams not making it back. It's not.
That's what I was gonna say. Is
a parity situation.
Like if you would have looked at the beginning of the year and said the finals is going to be Warriors against the Celtics, and the Celtics were a team last year that finished. I'm forgetting, but like 6 or 7. They were probably around wherever the Raptors missed the playoffs. They made it. And then you look at Golden State, who last year they played that game against the Lakers in a play-in. Everybody wasn't really sure how legit they were. Clay obviously wasn't back, and then the season starts, and all of a sudden Phoenix, who was top to bottom the best team by far in basketball, they don't make it. Brooklyn, we've talked about numerous times. I know there was the Kyrie thing, there was the trade, one of the biggest what ifs in NBA history, because I thought that they should have won the title last year. They don't. They end up getting nothing out of it. Then you look at teams like the Lakers. Nobody thought the Lakers would have missed the playoffs. They were betting favorite at the beginning of the year. Clippers, Kawhi goes down, doesn't come back. Paul George tears his elbow halfway through the season. That's a fiasco. They get Norm Powell. Like there's Jamal Murray. Like there's a lot. Everybody next year is going to be a lot better, including every team from Toronto to the Pelicans who are getting Zion back. Like everybody is going to be better. So
there's a big time parity in the league where there's no real dominant force. And I'll be honest with you. I mean, I was confident in the Boston situation, but if I'm being real with you and considering that the series went 7, do I think that Boston would be here if Middleton had been available to play? Probably not. I'm being honest.
Yeah, exactly, right. And who knows, because that series was going back and
Well,
forth
I
too.
mean, they were relying on what's that? The guy from Duke, the
Grayson
low
Allen,
blower, Grayson Allen, and like they.
another Lamar Grant favorite.
Oh man, they'll get. Oh, I really should have gone on that one more, but I let that one slide. Oh
Yeah.
no, we did. They don't need Middleton. They got Grayson Allen. I'm like,
You know how many people know that? I think Lamar was one of them, and so was Parker. I remember had mentioned that too. But hey, you play the game, and things happen. I don't want to be the guy that said "told you so," but I did have Boston. And the thing is, we talked about it. I guess just to wrap up, because we can talk all day. We talked about it in the first round, right? When we did our pregame series with Mike, we were talking about how Boston, the Nets, Boston could have lost in the first round. The Nets could have went to the finals. And ended up working out for Boston. But you look at Boston, what happened? They almost lose game one. Remember, they were down and they ended up winning by 1 or 2 points on that
yeah.
last second layup there.
The bad defense by Durant.
And then the rest of the series they go on, they sweep them. And who would have thought that? Next round you got the Bucks. You catch a bit of a break with Middleton going down.
Yeah.
You get Miami there, who everybody thought was somewhat legit, and then they can't score a basket to save their life with Mr. Grote, as he is, Kyle Lowry and company. And then you find yourself, Mr. Rumble. You find yourself in the finals now, right, against Golden State, who like you look at who they played, right? Like Denver was Jokic and a bunch of G Leaguers. After that, they ended up playing Memphis, playing Dallas, and you look and you're like, it's crazy because you go through the whole series and you're like, are those the teams that you really beat to get in? But who else is left? And this is the finals, right?
I mean, now you got me doing the flashbacks of Kyle flopping on the floor every 2 minutes, and truthfully, like I said, he was making me sick at times. I think me and you were on like some kind of kinetic thing, because I was about to text you that, and you hit me with it first, and I'm like, man, this guy is flopping like no tomorrow. And I guess as a Raptor situation, you were like, okay, you kind of deal with it because it was benefiting you. But man, when you're kind of on the outside, I'm like, oh, this guy is just flopping like crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of happy to see him lose. Just because again, I was low-key happy to see him lose. I'm not gonna lie, because believe me, I would have seen it all over social media. The Raptor fans would have been like, "Oh, look, here Kyle led them to the promised land with his 5 points a game, averaging 7 points in the series." I'm like, really? Oh, did you hold on? He didn't score. He scored 5 points, but did you see that charge? You see that charge with 2 minutes to go in the game? I mean, don't worry about anything else. Just look at that one play. Like, come on. Like, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
I don't know if I sent it to you, but I sent it to Zane. It was Ryan Russillo from the Ringer, Bill Simmons guy, and he was talking about it. It was they were together, and the quote was, he said something like, he goes, "You know what?" And he was getting all heated. He's like, if the NBA TV right deal was done and every player played like Kyle Lowry, everybody would say, I'm passing on the rights, because nobody wants to watch that guy play. He goes, it's too hard to watch him. He goes, all that guy does is try and take charges all game. And he scores
charges he embellishes a lot, and you can tell like when certain things, when he really just throws himself out. And I think they ran a poll on who was the bigger flopper, Smart or Lowry, and it was just like, oh, I don't know. Like in that series, it was definitely Lowry.
Smart, when he does it, like he'll like jump back. Lowry will just fall. And even the All-Star game, remember Lowry's trying to take charges in an All-Star game. It's getting ridiculous. Speaking of getting ridiculous, we did our finals. I don't want to call it a preview, our predictions. We're gonna get together back on Sunday because we're gonna watch that game together. So we will have, I guess, a bit of a recap after game one and then talking about game two and the rest of the series. We'll try and get Lamar on it. No promises.
It's a new day.
It's a new day, ladies and gentlemen. I want to mix in a voice note here and there. Just hit the play button on my phone and just a throwback. Tell him that he's coming for us, coming for the neck. We've made a pact that we can't let it out. So
I know I thought I was in timeout. I haven't. Maybe when the series starts tomorrow, he'll reemerge like Batman. But
be quiet in here, boys.
I thought it's been all of a sudden it gets too quiet and then he just jumps out of somewhere and then I think he was pretty mad at Marcus Smart for that comment that I read that correctly. He didn't like that comment. Well, I mean, that was one of Lamar's darker days when LeBron took down his Celtics a couple of years back. So
here's the quote: "Why is that idiot opening his mouth?" Marcus Smart, when they played LeBron and those guys, we definitely would have beat Golden State that year. That, to be honest, that triggers a memory. That was when Lamar said, "I'm done with these guys. I can't forgive them," was the quote. Remember when they went like 0 for like 1 for 20 from 3?
Terry Rozier and a lot of those guys. Yes. Obviously, like time heals all wounds.
Time
Clearly,
heals all wounds, and we're back. We're back, baby.
clearly, time heals all wounds. And I mean, he comes in, he comes dressed in the hat and the
In the Hamburglar, the Hurricane.
the Hamburglar.
That's what the
boy,
Rock called
boy.
the Hurricane, wasn't it?
I mean, so it was the Hurricane, Shane Helms. That's exactly what it was. But we know what we got to give Lamar some opportunity to defend himself. So hopefully we can get him on at some point in a situation. Maybe I don't know. Maybe even if it's virtually, even will probably still be pretty funny. But we'll try to get a show in there. I'm sure he's gonna come from my neck. I mean, that's just the normal situation.
That's a given.
It is what it is.
The right versus the left, the people versus the faction.
No,
all right. We'll wrap that one up. So you have Boston in 7. I have Boston in 6. And we will chat with you guys on Sunday. Enjoy the NBA Finals. For Igor and Joe, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys later.